Hello and welcome to the Pod Awakens, a Star Wars fan podcast. My name is Jordan. With me talking Ahsoka episode 4 is Chris. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing great. Doing great. What an episode we have to talk about.
And we have Ron with us again here. And we have Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing well. I actually got a gift from a friend here. He said he doesn't need it anymore. I guess something about he's a force ghost in the world between worlds or something like that. Either way, he said I could have it, though. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks nice. It looks nice.
You didn't expect to see him so soon.
No, honestly, I did not. And we won't jump right into it, but I'm just buzzing, man. Still buzzing. Oh, God.
Yeah, so spoilers will abound here. We're talking part 4 of Ahsoka. Fallen Jedi was the name of the episode. Written by Dave Filoni, directed by Peter Ramsey. It aired September 5th, 2023 on Disney+. And the synopsis was, Hera risks her career to help her friends while Ahsoka and Sabine confront enemies. Let's do a little bit of, I guess, housekeeping here. They announced earlier today that next week's episode is available to be screened at select theaters. You can go to a link on the Star Wars Twitter. Look, it's pretty much the ones that if you got to see Flash early, you can go see this. Like there's the one in DC, there's one in Philly, and then there's none else near me.
Yeah,
at all.
New York. Yeah.
LA, Disney Springs in Orlando. So if I was on vacation, I would try to get to it. Pretty cool, but I think that means that some big stuff is happening next week, right? I mean, not to jump ahead here, that's a pretty big clue.
Ahsoka Tano, this is your life. Book it. It's coming, man.
Yeah, I assume this is going to be the one that has the most Hayden Christensen, so they're putting it in theaters, try to get people some hype while they can't send the stars out for this due to the strikes. I don't know if this was always the plan or not, but pretty interesting that this is going. It is an episode that's directed by Dave Filoni. He usually handles his big episodes that he writes. So if you thought this one was a big one, next week's pretty big.
As long as there's no sand for Anakin, we'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, no sand anywhere to be seen.
No.
Here.
Oh, God.
And they came out with a new poster spoiling for everyone Hayden Christensen if they hadn't watched it yet.
Honestly, man, you got to market it. I was just going back and forth a little bit with a guy on Twitter about this today. Because he said they would have spoiled Vader being Luke's father in the trailer, which no, they wouldn't have. That's
they didn't spoil Rey and Palpatine.
Yeah, that's a complete overreaction. Like, you would almost have had to be more naive to think Anakin wasn't going to show up in some form in this show, whether it was a Force ghost, and we still don't even know if it was a Force ghost. Like, there is so much potential for what the world between worlds actually is. Like, we got sort of a broad strokes definition of it in Rebels, but I think there's so much room to add to the canon and to change things. Like, I've seen a big theory going around that it could potentially be the place the Jedi go when they die. Like, that's a really cool idea to me, because that's one thing that we have oddly never really learned, at least in main canon. I'm not big on the Legends canon, so I'm not too sure. You'd be able to help more in that department. But
no, World Between Worlds has never outside of Rebels, I don't think.
So it's kind of like Valhalla for Jedi.
Could decide to go that way. I mean, that would be interesting in how they can jump in and talk to people when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. And if the World Between Worlds is, look, it was part of a Jedi temple. It could be part of the Force, which means that becoming one with the Force means you're with the World Between Worlds. Like, it could be really stacked up pretty well there.
Yeah.
Before we kind of jump into that, I think this part is kind of overshadowed the rest of the episode, which even before that moment, I was ready to say that this was the best Star Wars episode of a TV show.
Same.
I was ready for that before we even see this World Between Worlds or Anakin Skywalker twist, because this just felt like Star Wars. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. What Dave does that is so much like George Lucas is something we don't get a lot of, the cutting in the battles. What I mean by that is we see Sabine and Shin fighting, and then it's cut to the next fight, which is Balin and Ahsoka, which is cut Hera arriving. And, in that makes me think of like Phantom Menace, right? When they're cutting from Anakin on the ships, right? And then cutting to Jar Jar on the battlefield. Like,
yep,
that is something handled pretty well. And I felt like this episode had that, and it left me constantly on the edge of my seat. And one thing that worked for me really well too was you're talking about how they would spoil stuff, right? Let's bring up this show's marketing, which all the footage we have left from the trailers is 9 seconds. And that's like 3 scenes. It's the atmosphere, Thrawn, and like one other scene that we have yet to see from the marketing. So no, I don't think they would spoil, type of reveal. No. We don't even know if Ezra's in this show. So obviously they're not willingly spoiling stuff. It is something I think that worked really well for me, is just not knowing what was coming up next, right? Like I didn't know who's going to go get Thrawn. The stakes were so high in this episode of stop the map. Either no one gets the Thrawn or we get the Thrawn. That's it for Ahsoka and Sabine, And she has that gun at the thing, and I don't know what she's going to do. I don't know where Ahsoka is right now. She's at the over edge of the cliff. I was really like amazed. I had no clue what I was supposed to expect.
Yeah, dude. And everything just felt so heavy right from the first scene. Like, their ship's broken down. They step out. It's this pitch dark night, but there's this fog in the air, and all the leaves in the trees are this dark red, which we referenced in a last episode. It gave me like, not horror movie vibes, but that same feeling of like that pit of dread in your stomach. Almost reminded me, again, and people might not relate to this one at all, but the episode where Negan got introduced into The Walking Dead, how they slowly set it up and built up the atmosphere and the ambience, and it was just like you knew something big was coming right off the rip. But I don't think any of us could have expected that. What did we get? 3 lightsaber battles in the course of like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Ron, we didn't get a Dave single. We didn't get a Dave's double. We got a Dave's triple baconator ready to go. I'm telling you, this was great. I thought the Sabine showdown in the woods with Ahsoka and the map, and it just was like I was at the edge of my seat, because every time there was such suspense. Every time they cut from one, I'm thinking they've gone a long time in that woods just fighting with, and it's like, and Sabine's not really good with the Force, so you were worried the whole time. You were like, there's no way she wins this fight. And the fact that she held her own, and then at the end she's tempted by her connection to Ezra, and she's got that choice. I'm just going, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it, and and I felt so bad for her, because that is the exact moment Ahsoka warned her about and was afraid that she would do. And now I worry that when she does reconnect with Ahsoka, that's going to be a thorn.
And I love to hear you say that, because as we said in the first episode, you haven't seen Rebels yet. So for you to understand already the gravity of that and how much Ezra means to her without having seen any of the buildup to that is a testament to how well they've done with this show.
Good storytelling doesn't need other shows. Good storytelling gets the thing done now. And good storytelling makes me say, you know what? I need to go back, not because I need to understand it, but because I want greater appreciation for it. There's a difference between I've lost, I have no clue, and I want to go back because this gave me a reason to.
Yep. And to reference what Jordan said about the back and forth and the heavy pace, I think back to Obi-Wan and the ending of that, when they were cutting back and forth between Vader and Obi-Wan fighting, and then the stuff with Reva and Luke and like Reva's aunt and uncle and Luke's aunt and uncle, that didn't really hit. Like a lot of people thought that interjecting all of this stuff with Reva kind of took away from that final fight with Obi-Wan and Anakin, because we kind of already knew where that was going. It's like, what's Reva going to come and capture Luke? Like, no.
Well, what I would say with that is, I think the main difference there is that the Obi-Wan Anakin fight was on such a personal level that it was such good character stuff, and then you're going to something that wasn't his character base.
Yeah.
And these are just action set pieces, which do have some background stakes, right? But like, it's not like you have our emotional stuff is going to be next week with Ahsoka and Anakin. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like you're juggling.
I cried like a baby at the end of last night.
It's not like you're juggling that with like the Reva stuff, you know? So I think that's one reason why it probably didn't work for people as much. One thing I would say too about this, and just the way that this was and how this worked all perfectly for me, I mean, is just, I was kind of amazed when I remembered that this wasn't Dave's episode, right? This is Peter Ramsey. He did Into the Spider-Verse, for people that don't know. He did an episode of Mandalorian last year. I forget, or this year. I forget which one he did on that one. But, I mean, I was just having a blast with this episode. And again, I didn't know what to expect, right? When we see Sabine and she's fighting, like, you know, I saw some people complain about this, of course, of like, well, she just got her ass kicked by this character like 2 weeks ago, and now she's doing well. She's also had more training since then. She's been more confident. I think she's wearing her armor. I think she's a little bit more sound in that. But also,
and there's a difference between needing to do it and wanting to do it. You were put in the spot right there. I didn't mean to cut you off. But...
She was caught off guard when Shin arrived the last time.
Yeah.
She
knew she was walking into a fight this week.
And she's been practicing with Ahsoka at the beginning of last week. I'm sure that's not the first time she practiced since they got back together. I'm sure it's not the last time. But
not to cut you off, yeah. I was going to say, plus, how many times can you hear Hu Yang tell you suck before you finally just say, you know what, I'm going to really give this thing the college try and get good at it.
Well, what I really appreciated about this, and what I kind of mean when I say I didn't know what to expect, is maybe I got fooled by this, but when she's holding out her hand for the Force, for her lightsaber, I guess is what she's trying to do, right? And it doesn't come. I was thinking it might come. I was like, this might be the moment she's waiting for here, but she still fails, right? And you know, Chris, you mentioned you think that maybe she gives indication. I'm so sure. I don't know. I'm not so sure she gives into the temptation here. I think what it is, she still wants to get to Ezra, but she probably knew she couldn't beat Baylan anyway. And at this point, it's like, let me join you, you know, and I will then get to see Ezra, and hopefully from there I can work this from the inside. I don't mean like turning dark side or anything, but what I mean like is, if you're going to find him, I'm going to be there too. And I'm going to find a way to bring him back, and we're going to beat you, is kind of what I hope Sabine's doing here. I'm hoping it wasn't just like a I give up type of thing.
I think the scene that makes it work is the fact that she was in the Force chokehold, and Baylan said, no, release her. I gave her my word. And I think that scene's very important, because she's a prisoner. She is going in there against her will to a large extent, but she's got some honor from Baylan there. And she's not going into the worst situation she could be, and dying doesn't give you any honor. There's no honor in getting your ass kicked by a Jedi who's going to wipe the floor with you.
Yeah. Plus, it was if Sabine didn't go with them, it was over with. There was no finding them. There was no, oh, there's another map. And if they did do that, they'd have a lot of angry fans on their hands. Yeah, no, I didn't see that as much. I saw it more as a reluctant last ditch Hail Mary effort of like, all right, it's this or we lose it, and we never see Ezra again, and Thrawn comes back and lays us all to waste. So
she probably thinks Ahsoka's gone too.
She doesn't know Ahsoka's there.
She thinks she's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For all we know, she might be. We don't know if she's dead right now, if she's we have no clue.
Well, that's a great point, because if Ahsoka is gone and she thinks Ahsoka's gone, changes the dynamic, and she's dealing with grief as she's making this decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not just grief too, but it's like, okay, well, I don't know how else to handle this. The person that would tell me that stuff gone, and I know she wanted me to shoot this thing, but now it's kind of whatever I say, right? Like if I'm the only one left here, I'm gonna choose to get Ezra because now he's the last family I have. Like Ahsoka would be gone, right? She didn't know Hera was about to approach. She has no clue that that's going on because that's all going on with Hu Yang, able to share that information with her at this point.
Mm-hmm. And Ahsoka has shown the insight that she's not going to be mad at Sabine for this. She's going to understand the situation she was. For example, when Sabine overreacts, goes, Hu Yang made it worse. She gets out her lightsabers and goes, "Nope, you want to do that." So that's a great scene. Ahsoka has showed great insight and understanding of people in this. So I think she would be very willing to forgive Sabine for the circumstance.
I love that scene, by the way, when she's like that daft droid like made it worse, and Ahsoka's just like, he won it, lights up her lightsabers right away. It was so cool.
You're like, oh, it's on. Yeah.
I had a question of when does she decide to use both, and when does she decide to use one? I was very curious about that because there were scenes where it was like very deliberately using one lightsaber and then using two. It's like, shouldn't you just always use two? Two is better than one, I would think.
I think it depends on the fighting style of who she's going up against. Like with Balin, it probably made sense with the way that he's swinging it like a broadsword. I feel like it'd make more sense to have the one. Mm-hmm. When you're going up against somebody like a Darth Maul, like she did in the Clone Wars, or going up against like Marok, who two blades, kind of more of like, okay, I need two blades type of thing. But yeah, I guess kind of whatever. But
yeah, I think it's definitely just kind of a whatever suits the moment point to your thing. But speaking of that fight with Merrick, and I know we're kind of jumping around here a little bit. Am I the only one who totally got, and you mentioned Maul, who got Maul and Obi-Wan vibes from Rebels with that?
Yeah, and I actually thought she split him in half with his reaction.
Me too.
But it looks like she got just enough of him to. So I guess let's talk about Merrick and what we think he is, right? Because it's just smoke that comes out. I'm assuming this is just Night Sister magic. Mm-hmm. A person, or maybe it was reanimating, because they can reanimate corpses too, as we see in Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order.
See, as an uninitiated one, I thought, is he a droid?
Maybe. Yeah, I understand why you would have gone there. I think it was just some kind of like Night Sister magic, but not a reanimation, because it pretty, like, the way that it just drops, it looks like it's just it's an outfit. The second that it gets sliced and he died, it's just an empty thing of clothing. So I think it was very much so just kind of Morgan Elsbeth's abomination creation sort of thing. It also leads me to believe that we're probably going to see at least one or two more of them throughout the last few episodes here.
That'd be interesting. She's like, well, time to make another Merrick. You know what that reminds me of? Is
this one's name is Derek.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers. Just like making her and sending them down to face the heroes. It's kind of what that reminds me of.
Deep cut.
Yeah. Well, it's the 30th anniversary of Power Rangers as well, so time to celebrate.
Me and my brother used to fight over who would be the blue Power Ranger on Halloween.
Yeah, because he was the best.
Everyone knew that too.
Best color. Funny that he wasn't the leader though. They always went red or green being the leader colors. But yeah, so this thing moved at a really quick pace. We got to see Hu Yang even keep his fight off some assassins. I was kind of hoping he'd have some lightsabers. Let's grieve a bit.
Just go Grievous, just like freaking swinging them all around.
Well, we saw him kind of do that with the training, right? He had 4 arms with hollow blades that she was fighting against.
Maybe we will. Maybe that was a bit of foreshadowing. Maybe at some point we will see that.
Can
The twist along the way is that Hu Yang was always Grievous.
Can droids
all along?
Can droids be force sensitive, or can they be programmed to be force sensitive?
So it depends. Okay, this is a deep cut. All right, so in the old canon, in what they call the expanded universe, there was a story that took place around the time of A New Hope or during A New Hope, which featured R5, which is the droid that Uncle Owen picks ahead of time, before R2. The one that has the bad motivator. And some people decided, well, make a deeper story to this. And it was like the droid was force sensitive and knew that R2 would have to carry this out, so he purposely blew his own motivator with the force. In regular canon, no, I don't think it's ever been that a droid is force sensitive. But what I will say is I'm currently reading a book called From a Certain Point of View, A New Hope. And it was released on the 40th anniversary of A New Hope. And they kind of retooled that R5 story to not be where he's force sensitive. And it's that R2 is begging him that the galaxy depends to getting to his master. And R5 finally buys into this and purposely blows his motivator to ensure that the rebellion will win. And oh my God, did that story make me cry or what? I was listening to this audiobook and I was tearing up with R5. R5's okay though. He's now he was in season 3 of The Mandalorian as Mando's droid. So he's hanging in there. He's doing good. That was one thing that made me happy throughout the story. I was like, okay, he's not gonna die. But yeah, I don't think in current canon droids can use the force.
Mm-hmm. As of yet, that we know.
Yeah.
Am I the only one who gained? Am I the only one who gained a lot of respect for Baylan in this episode? I thought this episode was a very Baylan-centric episode, and I thought the idea that he gave a little bit of his reasoning, and the way he was talking to Ahsoka, and he just seems very reasoned and stoic. And I'm very interested in his story now. Baylan is a character I'm hooked into. And he's kind of a bad guy, but I'm like, wait a second, is he? And then whoever the name of the woman that he's talking to,
Shin,
not Shin, the woman that's
one Elsbeth,
Morgan
Elsbeth, yeah. She seems like she's a bad guy, but Baylan seems like he's got his own motivations. I'm like, I got my ears perked up. I'm like, is Baylan the wild card in this entire show?
He's electric every single time he's on screen, and very much so in this episode. Even the title, throughout the
named after him. Yeah,
we think until of course we get to the last few minutes and we realize that it was actually Anakin this whole time. But you can easily make the case that it was Bolt.
For falling to join Baylan. Right, this title actually works in multiple ways. And Ahsoka literally fell off a cliff. It's so many layers right here.
A literal fallen.
The Onion episode.
Yeah, there you go. It works on so many layers.
Anakin's walking up, he just trips.
It's got to be the Onion episode because Ron's crying everywhere.
Yeah. Hey, Snip.
Yeah. I mean, this was. I think it was about Baylan because he gets the focus so much in this episode, and like you said, we kind of get to see how he handles this. We hear him say to Ahsoka too, when he's getting ready to what he think kill her, right? He's like, it didn't have to be like this, and we heard him say that in episode 2 at the end when he said, like, it's a shame that it would come to me having to kill her because there's so few of my kind left. He still kind of considers himself a Jedi in the sense of, like, that's what he was. He's not like a full-on evil person, though what he wants is kind of evil. The not gonna do good stuff when he returns. He heir to the Empire.
That dichotomy is so interesting, though, because Ahsoka is so willing to say, "I'm not a Jedi. I'm not bound by the Jedi principles." And here comes Balin being like, "Dude, I'm a Jedi. I'm a Jedi. I know what I am.
His
I'm
apprentice
doing."
has the Padawan braid. Like, he is following the Jedi team. Ahsoka is.
I mean, he is really the foil to Ahsoka. He's a perfect villain because he's a perfect foil for what Ahsoka is. And whenever you have a good villain story, the hero might be wrong.
Yeah. And the fight between him and Ahsoka was tremendous. The way I couldn't even count how many different times they changed stances and stuff in the middle of it. It was a tremendous, tremendous fight as well. Yeah, Balin is just a man. It's so unfortunate that Ray Stevenson isn't going to be able to follow up this role, RIP. But I'll tell you, if this was his last role, he is going out with a bang and then some.
Yeah, I kind of hope they kill him off. Like in the hope he filmed it knowing it was his
Same.
Like that it was it for the Star Wars and not like we're gonna lose this character off screen because of unfortunate circumstances because he killed it in this. Well, bad saying there. He delivered. He delivered this scene in this character.
This is a great way to end your legacy as an actor and as a person on Earth. You've given your entire purpose into what you're doing and showing your heart in your work and going out so valiantly. So rest in peace. Hopefully you're in the world between worlds. And I just did unbelievable performance. And there is a great honor in that.
Absolutely. And it wouldn't even shock me if we end up seeing him kind of, seeing the error of his ways in this show towards the end. Maybe something happens with Thrawn. I don't even want to begin to start, speculating theories on it. I could probably do it all day. But I do feel like there is redemption there. They wouldn't keep dropping these breadcrumbs every 5 seconds of not only his connection to the Jedi, but his apprehension to fighting them and removing them from the playing field if there wasn't going to be, I mean, even, when Shin, the moment we brought up before, when Shin basically wants to just kill Sabine and he says no. Like, there's way too much there, I think, for him to not be redeemed at some point. Hopefully over these next few episodes. My only fear was that this was something they planned on paying off in the movie we're getting, the Thrawn movie down the line, and now they won't be able to. But fingers crossed that we do at least get to see it in this show.
What is the greater good that he's fighting for? He says he's fighting for a greater good. It's interesting to me.
I think he's somebody that probably likes order, and what we've seen from the New Republic anyway.
First Order. Sorry.
Yeah. There you go. What we've seen from the New Republic right now anyway is that they're kind of incompetent. So I don't know how much he might have been pushed this way after seeing the Empire fall and then seeing the New Republic just be totally inept at what they're doing. I mean, they won't even send a freaking ship to see if this is real, right? Like, they don't even have to attack anyone. They just have to come in and be like, oh, yeah, there's actually something really here. Hera's right. And then they can plan for it. But instead, they're too scared to fight another war because they probably know that they did a lot to take down the Empire. They're probably worried that they wouldn't be able to hold on if they have to face another war so soon.
So he is the consequence of their inaction. He is the consequence of their ineptitude. He is the entropy of nature coming against this system that can't take care of itself.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the way he speaks about Anakin isn't like he revered him or what he became. So I don't think he's like Empire fanboy. So I'm not sure if it's something that like he developed after seeing how things have become, or if he's just a fan of.
He's no Kylo
humor.
Ren.
No.
I'm gonna throw another Walking Dead reference out there because I get a lot of Shane vibes from him. He's ahead of his time. He knows that the way things are right now, of people wanting to pretend everything's okay with their head in the clouds and not see this monster that's growing in sort of the underbelly, and that's going to take over and sort of repeat this whole process again, which we see in the sequels with the First Order and all that. It's very much like right premise, wrong approach sort of thing. Like I think he's dead right, and as we know, he's dead right. I don't think that throwing Thrawn back on the playing field is the way to solve it.
So you said Shane, so a lot of this
yeah. Let me ask you something, man.
That's John Bernthal's like thing to do. Always sticks with me.
Just don't kick his peanut butter and jelly soup.
But yeah, so it's interesting because I think, we're talking about a guy who has honor that is doing kind of dishonorable stuff, or what some people may consider dishonorable. I feel like instilling an empire is not very honorable if that's his goal. And he said kind of like before in episode 2, like power is kind of what he was looking to get out of it. Maybe he thinks that he can control stuff better if he's in charge of stuff, or if he's going to somehow try to. We don't know how dedicated he is to Elsbeth, if he thinks he might be able to over her or become second in command of Thrawn. Like, I'm very curious how to go with this, because looking back at the trailer, like the one clip we get of Thrawn, I now notice is in the hyperspace ring. So I kind of guessed around episode 4 or 5 is where we see Thrawn. If episode 5 is more focused on the world between worlds, maybe not then. But I still kind of intercutting from that to like Sabine and stuff, and maybe showing them get Thrawn, or at least that walk might be the end of the episode he gets introduced in. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
That was my call, and I hope this would be an Obi-Wan intercut situation, in my opinion. I think this needs to be 35 to 40 minutes of Ahsoka and Anakin together in the world between worlds, whatever you're going to do with it. And there's a lot of ways they can go with it, but I think whatever it is, it needs to be something that can stand on its own, that you can watch just cohesively from start to finish and not get interrupted with anything. I want to be like fully invested on those two and that story for 35 to 40 minutes. Then if you want to go like the Book of Boba route, like how they did with Cad Bane, give us that last scene in the last 5 minutes, that epic intro, just to be the cherry on top.
The guy who got the first 2 episodes correct on runtime says episode 5 is going to be 49 milliseconds.
Okay.
46 before credits.
So give me 40 of those two together. Give me 6 minutes of them finding Thrawn, and we're off to the races for episode 6.
I could totally see that. Yeah, I could totally see that being the case. Or it might just be 6 with Anakin and Ahsoka.
I have a feeling that I'm going to have to send a message to Ron at the end of the next episode, being like, "Hey Ben, are you okay?" Either way, good or bad. Like it's just going to be. He's going to be a hot mess. He's going to be an egg on the sidewalk in Arizona. Cooking. I can't wait for Ron. I'm invested in the show, but I'm invested in seeing how Ron reacts as much as I am invested in the show.
I'm an emotional Star Wars nerd, man. What can I say? Nothing on this earth can trigger my tear ducts. Like
the only thing that I hope is that we get Anakin and Ahsoka doing all that, and then we get Darth Maul just right there, and then Ron literally will be streaky like Frank the Tank down the neighborhood.
Temper expectations for Darth Maul, because I heard like that interview that's been going around. Apparently Sam Witwer said he couldn't talk about it because of the strikes. He wasn't really referring to anything special. he may have even forgotten that he worked on it because he's doing the additional voices. So I would say anybody out there expecting Maul, maybe to temper those expectations a bit.
Shut your mouth.
Well, we should be tempering our expectations anyway, because the worst thing that could happen in this is the fan base going crazy because they didn't do the thing but with the World Between Worlds that they were going to do. Because you can build this up as this is what they need to do, this is what they need to do, and then a totally good episode, but it's not what you wanted. And then you spit on it. You're going to see a lot of that on the internet. So I would say temper your expectations. The fact that they have all this leeway is exciting if you let it be. If you decide that if you see after the fact, there's a lot of people who hate this show, it'll be because they had unreasonable expectations put upon the show after last week's episode or this week's episode.
I'm just glad most opinions are positive on this episode because I watched it without seeing anything. I pressed it like right at 9, and then my dog asked to go outside, so I had to pause it. But like I kind of watched this one without seeing any responses, and I was, like I said, before that Anakin reveal was even ready, like, this is the best Star Wars we've gotten on Disney Plus. And then thankfully it seems like a lot of people are feeling the same way here. But I think let's kind of talk about that last reveal then. I think we kind of covered the big points here.
Mm-hmm. One thing, a specific shot I want to talk about when Sabine and Shin were fighting, and it was the wide shot of you get in the foreground Sabine's Mandalorian helmet, and in the background she's clanging away with the lightsaber. The symbolism of that, of her effectively dropping the Mandalorian helmet and now being this Jedi and using the lightsaber and kind of like moving away from that past and everything she'd been through is just chef's kiss, man.
How hard do you have to hit a tree trunk for your helmet to come flying off? Because it was when Shin pushed her into the tree that like her helmet goes flying. I was like, oh my God, how hard do you have to hit that tree?
Right?
It's football season. We're going to see some flying helmets. You know that.
You just got jacked up.
Well,
Shabib just got jacked up.
He probably look like on the animated series. And now we're going to show you what it looked like in live action. So this is the start of her getting up. Not as, like obviously I think they had to do something a little more than just white outline. So I like this kind of look here. It looks really great. This like blue. The way it kind of started with her as if she was laying in the water and we see it's the World Between Worlds was really, really cool. And then, we hear Anakin faintly say like, hey, Snips, which is his nickname for her. And then we get to see Hayden Christensen de-aged this time. Obi-Wan, he was de-aged all that well. I think they still said they de-aged him, but he looked older in Obi-Wan.
Well,
pretty good.
Well, no one should ever be able to look that handsome. It's annoying. The guy looks the part, but I really like the white outlines and the detail they put on the path. Kind of reminds me of like the old Zelda games where you had the invisible passage, but you could kind of see it, but you couldn't see it. I really like that. I don't know why that reminded me of that, but anytime something in nerd culture touches your like, oh, I like the way they do that. It agrees with my sensibilities. But this scene was very emotional, and I liked how uncomfortable Ahsoka was. Because she didn't know what to think. She was having the same experience as us, the viewer.
Yeah, and I love the stylization, the color, like you guys said. I'm almost wondering if we see it like change a little bit, like maybe it goes to red when we see the bad sort of stuff. Like we heard that little tiny bit of Vader at the end of that like at the end of the episode when it faded to black. So I definitely think we aren't just seeing Anakin throughout this. I'm almost positive we're going to see Vader too, and at least have the callback to their fight in the temple from Rebels. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things he says to her was he didn't expect to see her so soon. So I think that kind of lends credence to maybe the theory of them being Force ghosts there or dead, because maybe thinking, I thought she had more time.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's somebody that already experienced this and realizing it's, at this point, like, oh, I can't believe it's already this time for this to happen. It's kind of like can be an odd thing here. He's wearing his Revenge of the Sith outfit, but I think somebody said where it looks like looks more like Darth Vader's than the Anakin blade. Were you able to see?
Reflection. It's the shadow off of the outfit. It's Anakin's Episode 3 saber.
Okay, cool. The hero, the Luke Skywalker Rey lightsaber.
Yep.
But yeah, so this is not the first time she's been in the World Between Worlds. I think she's kind of gathering like, oh my God, how did I end up here? Mm-hmm. This is where she was last time. Last time Ezra had to pull her out of a situation where she was fighting Anakin, and now she's face to face with him here, and we don't know how she got here. Obviously, not from falling off a cliff. So it's either Anakin pulled her out of there, somehow something caused her to go to it. I mean, like we talked about, that map kind of reminds you of the World Between Worlds. So I'm kind of curious, Ron, do you have any ideas on maybe how she got there?
Only thing that I can think of is if they're going forward with the idea that this is the place where Jedi go to die, and she is in fact dead. Then you kind of got to figure out how you're going to bring her back to life. But I mean, we've seen Night Sister magic already. Not saying that that's how it would happen, but we have seen this kind of thing done before. So it stands to be reasoned with that there could be some kind of way that the Jedi could do it as well. Only thing that I wouldn't be thrilled about from this whole World Between World things, and you know me when it comes to Star Wars and rhyming, I love that kind of thing. I think it would be a little cheesy if this ended up with her pulling Ezra through the portal, kind of in the way that he did to her in Rebels. If that was kind of the cheesy way that they were like, oh, how are they going to get Ezra back, even though they don't have the map anymore, yada yada. If that was how they did it, and it started this whole sort of like, what am I thinking of? Like a Groundhog Day sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like this sequence of events sort of, and like that I wouldn't be too thrilled about, but I don't think they're going that route with it. So yeah, basically I say all that to say, I think if I had to give a theory on it right now, it would be that she is in fact dead right now.
It really makes me wonder how they're going to have to explain this to people that didn't see Rebels or are familiar with this, because Ahsoka's been there. So it's not like Anakin can like explain it to her because she's already been there. I mean, I guess he can, and she'd be like, oh yeah, I almost forgot that this is how my life was saved. Yeah. I mean, it'd be kind of odd. Chris, do you have any guesses here on how maybe she ended up there? Do you buy into it that she's dead, he's dead, they're all dead?
Everybody's dead. Oh no, I'm excited that I don't know. I'm excited that I don't know because that means I'm surprised no matter what happens. Which I think as a viewer, sometimes not knowing, we talked about this with the first episode. The show doesn't hold your hand, but I don't think it needs to. This is what I'm talking about. I'm down for the ride. Now, my guess is that she's dead because we've seen this parallel in countless movies where you get that little scene before, you got it in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, you got it in Blue Beetle, you got it in Harry Potter, you got it in The Matrix. It's a trope. So my idea is that she's dead and that she's seeing a Force ghost of Anakin. What I want to know is, what can a Force ghost do? What can a Force ghost, could Anakin pull her into that moment and have any influence on what happens? Is Anakin a figment of her imagination? Is it a chemical reaction that happens when you're going through this? I have so many questions, but I cannot be disappointed. This is where more fans need to be, because everyone's gonna like put a line in the sand. This is what I want. I'm just like, I can't lose, guys. I cannot lose.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm not going to buy into that she's dead. Though I do wonder how she got there. If not, right? Like,
Well, it's limbo. I don't know that dead really means dead in anything
but the thing is,
like
we don't know if it is
this.
limbo. Usually, the last appearance it wasn't. It was just like, I mean, it was a world between worlds. I guess you could consider that technical limbo, but it was more of like between time and space, and you know, uh, so I'm curious
Maybe
if
maybe she had
Anakin.
like a force related connection or something. Like so there was a disruption in the force, and then I don't know.
It'll be interesting in how they explain this to everyone and what we're supposed to know. Because let's say Anakin is a Force ghost, and this is where they go. Can he pull in somebody and save them, or is that reserved for people? Is he actually sometime in Episode 3 made his way to the world between worlds instead of being dead? Like it's kind of this curious thing of.
Oh, so he might not even have been Vader at this point in the world between worlds, is what you're saying?
Yeah, theoretically, it could be possible because
Yeah.
it's a moment between anything and time. Like when they're in here, at times, like this is when he to pull Ahsoka in and save her from this moment here.
Wow.
There was clips from Kylo saying stuff and old Obi-Wan saying stuff, and then clips from Phantom Menace and stuff like that. It's like you hear audio clips from every single story in the franchise at that point. So I'm curious.
If it was not week 1 of the NFL season, I would say let's fast forward immediately to Tuesday.
Well, it is week 1. I still say let's immediately fast forward to.
I can't do that. But after Sunday, immediately.
Yeah, skip Monday, right?
I don't know. Monday night's going to be fun.
So, one theory that I saw kind of tossed around, and admittedly, I don't really think I'm knowledgeable enough to comment, but you might be, Jordan. Do you think this could be the son? Like,
I did see somebody say that. So, for people that don't know, there was a Mortis arc in the
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars, but also these three, the son, the daughter, and the father, were all on the walls of the Jedi Temple that opened up the world between worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a link there. The son was kind of like evil, kind of portrayed like the Anakin role in the story and stuff. But the Mortis arc kind of left you with this: did it all actually happen or not? Because they kind of wake up after they'd gotten lost.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue I would say to that is people think it's the son posing as Anakin. That's a lot to explain to casuals. I can't see it happening. I just can't see it.
I would be completely lost.
Yeah, that's where you lose everyone. And they're putting this in theaters. I can't that being the case.
I can't. Yeah, me either. It was something interesting that I thought I'd bring up. Like I said, I don't really know too much or enough about the whole because there's a lot. They delve into a lot more of that in like the legend stuff, correct? Or am I wrong on that?
I don't think so. I think they really only
really?
cover it in Mortis.
Oh, okay.
I can double check. I'm gonna on the.
Do you think there will be more action because they're putting it in theaters?
No, I think this will actually be pretty heavily non-action.
Yeah, I think it'll feel much more story-centric, story-based, personal connection kind of stuff. I mean, I do think that we are going to see action, whether it's stuff from the past, I think, like I said, I could see them maybe going and, a Ahsoka Tano, this is your life kind of thing. Like we see some of her moments, like hopefully maybe her fight with Maul at the end of Clone Wars, the fight with Vader that we referenced before. There's a lot of stuff they could go to. They could even show alternate universes, sort of like
what
if stuff.
look, the one thing she's had as a hang up this whole time is that she wasn't there for Anakin at the time that he fell. So I think you might see some stuff that either shows her preventing that fall or maybe events playing out the same way and showing that it it didn't matter, right? Like and she can kind of let that go then of okay, this was always his destiny to become this and now I can let that go. It's not a failure on my part. Is hopefully something
That's
that
my
she
goal.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because
what I think.
I think that might stop her being so stoic and stuff. She might finally be able to kick in and know I can train Sabine. I can do this because I'm not the reason he fell. I think
Yeah.
she thinks, and she kind of talked about this in Rebels. She apologized to him, or whatever. Like I should have been there for you and stuff like that. And I think she thinks she could have prevented this. And I think if they show her she couldn't, and Anakin would be the perfect person to show her that, by the way, walking along, being like, hey, this was my journey. I was supposed to do this. I'm the chosen one. I still made all this happen.
Mhm.
I had to do it. But I think we might go that route with it, and she can maybe put that to bed and come back more confident and take on Sabine and be more of her old self.
Agree 100%. I think that's exactly where they're going with it. I think we're going to see. I mean, there were some rumors going around that maybe we were going to see a situation where she was in sort of Obi-Wan's shoes in the battle on Mustafar and like how things would have gone with that. I think so. Yeah, I think ultimately what the whole reasoning for this is for Ahsoka to be able to get rid of this guilt and know that this is how this was going to be no matter what.
A lot of time when there's trauma, the people who survive feel guilty as if they could have controlled it. They could have done something differently.
Survivor's
And,
guilt. Yeah.
and one of the best, most healthy ways to deal with that is to map out what happened and then come to the realization that you had no control over the situation. And
And what better
closure,
way than the guy that you think you let down
yep.
telling you it's not your fault?
And who hasn't wished they could talk to somebody from their past to get closure in something like this? I might cry next week, so I'm gonna go buy some Kleenex. See you later.
I would say I'll let you borrow some of mine, but I'm going to need them.
Yeah. Oh man, this is must see television Tuesday night coming up here. Really looking forward to seeing how that's going to go. I mean, again, I think this whole episode is going to be probably Ahsoka and Anakin. I can't see it being. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of other stuff, but it's 8 episodes. We're at the midway point. You can do this episode and then have the next 3 be balls to the wall. We have to get this thing, Thrawn.
It's the
Everybody
elephant in the
together.
room.
Yeah.
You have to get rid of the elephant in the room before you can do all the other stuff. This is what the fans want the most. This is where the satisfaction is going to come. And this is what's going to connect different waves of Star Wars fans. You have the people who watched all the stuff like you guys, and then you have me be like, this is going to connect to what I know, and this is going to connect me to where I'm going in my Star Wars journey. So this is really the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, really excited to see what with it. We didn't get to talk about Hera that much, or Jason showing some force sensitivity. I think
I
here
got
when
a
he says
bad
he's
feeling.
got feeling. He didn't finish it about this, but he said he had a bad feeling. Great to hear that line in Star
I was just
Wars,
going to
but
say.
I just love it.
The problem is, all I could think of, it flew over me because all I could think of is Mr. Stark. I don't feel so good.
But yeah, I mean, he said he has a bad feeling. I think that shows some force sensitivity. He said last week he wants to be a Jedi. Really curious on where they go with it. We know he's the son of Kanan. So kind of really curious on where they go with Jason Syndulla here. Spelled the same way as another famous Jason in Star Wars lore. Not canon anymore, but Jason Solo, who was Anakin's grandson the same way that Kylo is and turned to the dark side, Jason Solo. Spelled the same way, Jacen. I think that nod that Dave Filoni gave to the EU there. I don't think Jason Syndulla is turning to the dark side and part of the reason why Luke's temple fell or anything.
No, definitely not. I don't think we're going to see much payoff from that.
Not this show. Not this show. I don't think. Maybe season.
I can honestly see, maybe we get a mini series or a special or something, just kind of detailing his come up and everything that happens with him throughout the years. Also, we'd be remiss not to mention the line, once a rebel, always a rebel.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Like, just
we got
smack me in the face with it and do it again, please. Like, oh, man.
We got Carson Teva in this episode. Chris, this is a guy that's in The Mandalorian a few times, but he's one of the X-Wing pilots that goes with Hera, and it was great to see him. Last time we saw him, he was talking to Zeb, another one of the Rebels crew. So
I was just going to say.
I was kind of hoping we'd see Zeb in this episode, but not to be.
Well, Jordan, do me a favor. Clip this soundbite of Ron saying, smacking me in the face with it, and then smack me again. Please, just clip that together. Put that on TikTok. No context.
No context. I don't know. That sounds like that could get us in a lot of trouble. A lot of stitches and a lot of audio.
We're trying to avoid copy. We're trying to avoid.
We're going viral.
But yeah. So I mean that it was great to see Carson Teva. We had this whole fight where then the ring finally took off, and I mean the poor pilot dies along with whoever else was there.
Yeah,
two of them died.
That was gnarly, dude.
Well, Hera's going to have a lot of consequences from this episode. And I thought it was a little interesting that she brought her son into this environment. Like, as a mother, it's almost a weird choice.
I can see that as somebody that hasn't seen Rebels, but as somebody that's seen Rebels, I was like, that's pretty on brand.
Yeah.
Pretty on brand. They used to fly around with kids all the time with Ezra and Sabine. But also, at the end of Rebels, they show her flying with Jason in the co-pilot seat. So I was pretty excited.
Is there no child endangerment laws in the galaxy?
No, look, the New Republic's brand new. We already know they're incompetent. They don't care threats outside of there. I don't think they're that worried about child.
I believe the children are our future.
No child left behind in Star Wars just means they have to come on all the death.
Yeah. All the dangerous missions.
You're going to get me fired before I get hired, guys.
But yeah, so it was great to see that little bit of action there with the with the hyperspace ring and seeing the Ghost. We got to see the Ghost in live action. That's the name of the ship that Hera drives as well. And she, she was forbidden to go, and she told a guy working in the cruiser with her, like, "Oh, you'll make something up, right? You'll find some excuse for me." I wonder what excuse he really used there, because she's gonna be, like you said, in a lot of trouble when she gets back.
She will, but hopefully this also kind of is the spark, that makes the New Republic be like, okay, this is a real thing now. Like, we've buried our heads in the sand about this enough. We'd like to pretend everything's okay, everything's so great, hopefully the fact that they just lost all these pilots and now
is that enough proof? That's what I want to know. Is it enough proof?
Yeah, Morgan Elsbeth is on the fast track to Thrawnsville. Hopefully, if this isn't enough, then it just confirms the fact of how right Baylan is about
it is softened. Her trouble should be softened by the fact that, oh shit, you're right.
Yeah.
Or she is right. This is exactly proof. And it should be almost an apology baked in with her punishment.
It's amazing they're not. okay, look, if I had just arrested Morgan Elsbeth, and then we lose her, right? And then we find out the place she's running is pro-Imperial. It's amazing to me that some senators like, we can't follow her though.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to get the prisoner you had back? Like, you don't want to stop that at all?
Let the serial killer back into society. He's learned the way of his work.
We can't risk another war. I'm sorry.
It even makes the fans want to like turn to the dark side. It literally does. Oh gosh. But yeah, hopefully this leads to them realizing how wrong they were and also sending in reinforcements that include Zeb.
Yeah, give us Zeb. Give us them all, right? Callus and Callus at all from Rebels. He would be great to see in live action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really curious on where they go with those storylines with Hera and stuff, because that's kind of the first line in the synopsis, which kind of surprised me. Hera risks her career.
Yeah.
Not really how I looked at it, right, when I was watching it, but I look back at it, I'm like, okay, this is what they wanted us to take away from it. She's risking her career. I can see that now. But you kind of get caught up in the rest of it. We know she's right. We want her to take this action. And I love when, Huyang calls her and is like telling her all this. And she's like, yeah, we're right here. Like, yeah. We're here. Like, all right, cool. That's fast. I'm glad she didn't let the politics keep her out of it.
Was she ever going to?
No.
It's Hera.
But it's funny. I know some people take this the wrong way. They're like, I believe we've seen our heroes of the original trilogy fail. Like, they did all of this for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you already have the First Order at the beginning of episode 7, you have to be able to set that up. And the way you set that up is by having an incompetent government again. And look, to make it realistic, right? They would have to hire pro-Imperial people, which means then that seeds this into the New Republic already, right? And then you have to, some of them are very anxious about a war again. So they're going to sit on some of this information. They're not going to be proactive because they're worried about another war.
I wonder where they could have gotten motivation here from, this great progress squandered by complete incompetence, and then people coming in with evil intention, erasing all of it as they plan to the whole time. I wonder where they get their inspiration, guys.
You don't think it's based off real life, do you?
Nah. Especially the part about, even though the evil empire is gone, their influence and their stain still remains. It doesn't have anything to do with the real world.
Yeah, so what do we think? Let's take a guess on this. What do we think episode 5 is called? Part 5. You think they just go with something like The World Between Worlds, or another name for it? Master and Apprentice we already had, right? So I'm trying to figure, because that'd be another
Closing the Gap.
I'm
gonna go with Closing the Gap.
Closing the Gap. Man, that's interesting. I do think it'll be something. Did you have anything in mind, Jordan?
No, I think like Master and Apprentice would have worked really well for this. I could see it being some sort of reference to maybe like going through time or some. If they're going to literally show Ahsoka like some of these big moments again, maybe its name is something related to that, or just as simple as The World Between Worlds, even though that was already a Rebels episode.
Yeah. My head instantly went to something involving fate, obviously, because the whole thing is that this was going to go the way it was going to go no matter what. Like, maybe find some creative way to incorporate the maybe call it like the world of the fates or something, like total just off the top of my head. That would probably be awful, but just something that would be a fun little nod to Duel of the Fates, also referencing the fact of just like Anakin was always going where Anakin was going. nobody was going to stop him. If Padme couldn't stop him, nobody was going to stop him. That sort of thing. And about Ahsoka accepting and letting it go. So something in that vein. I won't even try to think of another one off the top of my head.
I got one.
What?
Ghosts of the past and present.
Maybe.
If they want to do something like Duel of the Fates, they could do like Path of the Fate or Path of Fate. Something that's like, if they're walking, it's like a path. All of these are
that
just
would be good.
Paths,
Yeah.
Right, like it's the path Anakin had to go down of. I don't know. It could be something like that, or it's going to be something totally different than that. But I just thought it'd be fun to speculate on what type of possible name we have here.
We're not going to narrow it down because only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Right. Exactly.
Electric Boogaloo.
It's not either or. It's any. Anything else about this episode before we wrap it up? Did we miss anything?
I don't think we missed anything.
We did.
No.
We did. Ahsoka got the map burned into her hand, right? Do you think that plays into how she can find them?
I hope not. I wouldn't be a fan of that. That would be if she wakes up and she looks at her hand and it's like the perfect map. I would be kind of pissed if they went that
She
route.
has a glove on too, so I don't know. But people think, because apparently it happens in Raiders of the Lost Ark, that it could be a little bit of a thing here.
My biggest complaint in The Rise of Skywalker was the incredible convenience of all the plot points. It wasn't the plot points, it was the incredible convenience of the plot points. So that would rub me the wrong way because I'd be like, Star Wars cutting corners? I've seen that.
What, you mean it wasn't realistic that there was a dagger that perfectly lined up with the mountain with the rain
Death Star.
The remnants of the Death Star? Come on.
To be fair, nothing's realistic in Star Wars. But
I'll say I really did dig that, by the way. It doesn't make any sense because it's an old dagger. But I do like it. What I think actually happened there is they probably originally wrote it to be like a newer thing, and then they like retrofitted it to be old or something.
Yeah.
But what I'll say for everyone, if you want more appreciation of Rise of Skywalker, and you like reading the books, there's a great book called Shadow of the Sith, Star Wars. It focuses on Luke and Lando doing that mission where they mention it in Rise of Skywalker, running down Ochi of Bestoon, who's the one that had the knife. Pretty good story with that, and then it also follows Rey's parents and Rey as they're trying to escape from Ochi and stuff. So,
wow!
It also has the Tython where they go and Baby Yoda sits on the rock. They also go there in the story, so it kind of shows how Luke might already know about that. And lots of good tie-in stuff with the story. But I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed that book a lot. And if you like listening to audiobooks, a way to listen to audiobooks. I didn't listen to that one on audiobook, but I listened to a lot of the High Republic on audiobooks, and Mark Thompson, who does it, is fantastic. And they actually add in the sound effects. They add in music at times. It feels like a whole production. So I definitely recommend that to anybody listening who's like, I want to dive into the books, but I don't want to read. The audiobooks are really well done. Very well done.
Where do you get your audiobooks? Do you do Audible?
I do Audible. You can subscribe with the code word. I'm just kidding. We don't have any sponsors. This is non-sponsored. But yes, Audible. I pay like $20 a month, I guess it is. I get a credit each month. And I've just been spending it on Star Wars books every single month. And I just love listening to them. And it's really great.
We are actually sponsored by the Chris's Wallet Foundation. I will be happy to take any dollar bills. It's right here. Any dollar bills you want to put in there, go for it.
So as the podcast owner, that means you pay me for the advertising, right? So I
absolutely,
get your money
sure,
from the wallet.
Sure, absolutely. Here's all $1.
I'll take it.
Actually, I got $2 in here, Jordan. It's all yours.
Wow, so generous.
And also, kids, pick up a book. Like audiobooks are fun. Don't get me wrong, I love them, but also pick up a book.
I do both usually. I was reading.
The future English teacher here agrees.
I was reading Jedi Battle Scars physically at the same time I was reading the audiobooks of the High Republic stuff. And I take a walk every day. So it's really nice to be able to take like an hour walk and I get done like a chapter or two of the book. And then I come back in and read a different book. You know, like I'm juggling. My wife's like, "Don't you get confused?" I said, "No, because one is taking place hundreds of years before, and the other one isn't. So I'm able to keep track pretty well."
Not Star Wars related, but I had to pick a young adult novel for my class. I was like, "Ooh, there's a Black Panther book, Black Panther novel. Let's go!"
Nice, very good.
So that's how you do it.
I used to read books like so they came out with this book series around episode 1, which was called Jedi Apprentice, written by Jude Watson. 18 books, right? They're small though. I used to read those. Like I would buy the new book when it comes out. I was always on this like fan site that would say when the next book's coming out and have the cover, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I gotta mark that down. I gotta get this book." So that's what I grew up with. And then she wrote the Jedi Quest series, which was between 1 and 2. And then she wrote Fall of the Jedi. No, The Last Jedi. Yeah, that's what it was. The Last of the Jedi, which was a between 3 and 4, focused on Ferris, a character that was a side character in the Jedi Apprentice novels. None of that's important.
The wheel.
None of that was important.
I had a friend at Boy Scouts who every trip brought like 3 Star Wars books with him. And he would just like talk about the Star Wars books. So the deal was he would talk about the Star Wars books and then I would just run his ear off about football. It was great. I actually know a couple of details that I know about Star Wars just because I remember talking to him.
That's funny. Because like I was saying, so now I've been like reading a book into a book, and then I would also take time to read some of the High Republic comics as well. So it was like, man, I was getting my fill in leading up to Ahsoka. Here, I was like getting all these comics, books, and audio books, podcasts, all this good stuff. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. I think we kind of talked enough about this. We have to save some stuff for next week because next week's probably going to be incredible. So we'll talk about episode 5. Which again is written and directed by Dave Filoni, and it premieres September 12th on Disney Plus at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
We got to save something for the pod between pods.
Right, there you go. That's a good pod name if people want to take a name of Star Wars. But yeah, so we'll catch you next week. If you want to follow Ron and Chris, I have their information in the show notes, so you can follow them on Twitter there. You can send us feedback for the show specifically at podawakens. I am scheduled.
No, that is...
What?
Oh, my bad. I was going to say I didn't change it. That's my old Twitter @ there. That is,
did you change it?
Let me go on. Yeah, my bad. I made it my my TikTok handle. So let me just go ahead and update that. And
there you go. So I'll have to update the show notes. There you go.
Yes, that is where you can find me on Twitter and TikTok. You'd probably prefer the TikTok version of me because I just kind of shitpost Star Wars stuff all day, memes, all that stuff. I'm a little more concise on Twitter, so yeah, we have fun on TikTok.
Yeah, it is elite. I don't know. It's like the video because I don't press the like button all the time, but it's just elite.
Chris, you're killing me. You have to press the like button. You have to comment.
Right. Okay. Be careful what you wish for. You're getting all the likes and comments. You're
Good. That helps the algorithm. I'm also scheduled to be on. I talked about a guest I had a few months ago, Ken Bishop. He was on the show. We talked Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary. I'm going on his show to talk about the Ewok films. So I am going to be recording that on the 18th. I don't know when that'll go up, but so keep an eye out for that. I'll probably share that stuff on the social. You can watch the Ewok films on Disney Plus. They're from the 80s, television, straight to TV type stuff. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and talk about that stuff over on his show. But yeah, that about wraps it up here. Thank you all for watching and listening, and we will catch you next time.